Okay, class, good day. So, for this lesson, we're going to tackle your Module 3 of your Interprof. I do apologize for the delay in uploading this. I had some problems in the past few days. Nonetheless, let's tackle your Module 3. Now, one of the lessons for your Module 3 class is the basis of interprofessional communication. Now, you need to understand, class, that in interprop communication, the key term or the key thing you need to remember is that there has to be team, relationship, and patient safety. These two class are the two most important component of interprofessional communication. Now, as interns class, in the future, you will be working together with different healthcare workers. Now, it's very important that you have the ability to communicate clearly and I emphasize respectfully, uh, which is essential to interprofessional collaboration. Now, recognizing the value of contributions from all team members is essential. So there has to be class. Please take note of this. If you're going to form a team, there has to be certain aspects that you need to take note of. One of those is that there has to be a role clarification. Second, there would be role valuing. And third would be power sharing within the Interprop team. Etong power sharing class, just to share to you dito kasi sa Pilipinas. Sa Pilipinas class, meron kayong may encounter na workers that mahilig magbida-bida. They would tend to uh, hug all the power and they wouldn't share it with others. And sometimes nagkakaroon ng problem. Kaya it's very important, class, that you have clear communication. Now, what are the communication processors? Now, it would all begin, class, with a stimulus. When you say stimulus, you're going to need a source of information. Magtatanong ka, you're going to ask, you're going to comfort, you're going to advise. Let's say there's a problem. Let's say may problem kayo sa patient. The patient told you na I'm suffering from diabetes. Can you not take blood from me anymore? So the patient would now be the sender. Now this could be through via different personal factors, their agenda, their goal, their bias, their relationship, their culture, their past experience, their mood or attitude. Kasi di ba pag diabetic class, they're often monitored a lot for their blood, di ba? So, kapag ganun, hindi mo naman maiwasan talaga na mag-worry yung patient, kaya ganun. But nonetheless, class, you have to explain that later. Then there's also your mood, attitude, value system, knowledge, ability to relate to others, environmental factors, and even gender goals. Now, the sender, or in this case, the patient, could relay the message in two ways. Number one would be verbal. When you say verbal, via words. And the second one would be nonverbal. Now, nonverbal class is the one that is often common or rarely noticed talaga to, class, but it's very common done by humans. Now, nonverbal could come in body languages. This is a visual form. Tactile. When you say tactile, it's more of a skin to skin. Example is hugging. Then smell, body odor, and silence. Silence, class, is the most common. And to not be biased or anything, ang silence, class, is very common among women. And even some men na matampuhin. I know some people na ganyan na, like when they're mad, they would tend to be silent. Tapos aas ng partner niya, like aas ng tao na, ang problema mo, ba't nagbiba yung mood mo? Then that's one way you would relay message na nagtatampo ka, na may sama ka ng loob, or something. Now, both verbal and non-verbal, class, may contradict and may substantiate. When you say both verbal and non-verbal, class, kasi ganito yan, we would often say things that our body wouldn't agree with. Halimbawa, pag napipilitan ka sa isang bagay, sasabihin mo dun sa coworker mo or dun sa patient na, sige po ma'am, tatry kitang hindi kunan. But deep inside, as protocol, as a medtech, you still need to take blood. Now, the message could be influenced, class, by transmission quality, the amount of input, the clarity of input, the relevance of input. Now, itong amount, clarity, relevance, class, di ba ang mga messages nyo, they could come in different forms. And sometimes, kapag ang patient hindi nila na-explain ng maayos or even other professionals, yung instructions or yung gusto nilang iparating, it could lead to different interpretation. Now, as medtechs or the person receiving the message, you need to evaluate certain filters. What are the personal agenda goals, bias, culture, similar with the sender also class. So you need to try to analyze well the message, and then after that you're going to formulate a feedback. When you say formulation of feedback, ano yung reaction mo? Ano yung reaction mo as the receiver? Do you agree? Do you disagree? If hindi ka sure sa sinabi sa'yo, you could clarify it. You could provide information, request information, give feedback, which would take many forms, either verbal, non-verbal, both verbal and non-verbal. Now, here are some factors that would affect communication. We have your emotional state. Diba, kapag we're angry, we tend to say things we don't mean to. When we're sad, we tend to shut up. Or when we're happy, we tend to become too vocal. Then there's the mood. Like, are you in a good mood today? Are you in a bad mood? Do you prefer quiet or do you prefer loud environments? Response to stress. How do you respond to stress, class? Are you easily annoyed? Are you irritated? Those are parts of communication as well. Then you also need to consider the age and developmental levels of the patient. Like when you talk to a toddler, how do you talk to a toddler, or how do you explain to a toddler na kukunan mo siya ng dugo? Or how do you express to someone who's very old na kukunan mo siya ng blood? Then you need to also consider physical factors, like is the patient obese? Is the patient thin? Those are some things you need to consider. Kasi kapag obese ka, they tend to be more shy. And when you're muscular, you tend to be too confident. So that's just some social cues. Then relationship factors, social or professional factors, like and cultural differences and even lack of respect. So these are some of the factors that affect communication. Let's go to your lesson 2 of module 4. Let's go to the type of communication. Now, earlier I told you na meron dalawang klase, the verbal and non-verbal. Now, the verbal is typically oral or could be written. When you say oral, this would refer to speaking and listening, while for written, it could be writing or reading. While for the non-verbal, facial expression, gestures, body language, symbol, touch, and eye contact. As a medtech class, ako ang pinaka-common sa akin na non-verbal na is gestures, body language, and even touch. Sa partner ko class, when I have a partner, I like to be more on the facial expression pag nag-away kami. Pinapakita ko na naiinis ako, but I don't say, that's just an example. Anyways, let's go. Now, verbal communication class vocabulary and language can affect the receiver's understanding of the message. Healthcare professional, when communicating with patients, families, or even co-health care workers, should speak class with confidence and authority. Now, as a medtech class, as professionals, when you face patients or even other health workers, you need to be confident and with authority. Pag trabaho mo yan, class. You need not be shy, you need not be scared. Now, speech class that is too fast or too slow may be difficult to understand. Tayong mga medtech class, we tend to speak fast kasi sanay tayo nag-overload ng data. That's why minsan if you notice sa recordings ko, ang bilis ko magsalita. But I do try to slow down once in a while. And you also need to consider, class, the tone of the voice. The volume and clarity may also affect the message you want to convey to the receiver. Pag nag-explain ka ba sa patient mo, like, are you angry? Are you too mad? Or something like that. You need to have a balance on that. And you also need to consider the non-verbal communication. Now, this nonverbal form of communication has a strong effect, and it's very important that it is congruent or aligned, class, magkapareho with your verbal communication. Now, one of those you need to consider as professional is your appearance, class, which can help develop trust and therapeutic relationship. Every effort must be put on to create trusting relationship with the patient. Now, as mentioned earlier, yung body language na would involve gestures, movement, physical behavior, and even mannerism. Posture and rhythm of movement are both forms of body language. Now, the recommended posture for healthcare professionals when conveying a message with patient is slightly forward thrust. So, naka-incline kayo with an open body posture indicating interest in what the other person must say. Kaya when you talk to a patient class, I suggest, halimbawa nag-explain kayo ng ano, don't, or you're listening, nakikinig ka sa sinasabi ng patient, don't cross your arms. Try to be neutral or try to be open para makarating doon sa pasyente na nakikinig ka or interested ka sa sinasabi. Then facial expressions class are also important in signaling feelings or emotion. It is important that your facial expression would match the message you attempt to convey. Lack of facial expression can be interpreted as an indication of uncaring. Now, gestures are often used to fortify verbal communication. Overuse of gestures can be distractful and may cause listener to lose focus. Now, touch by holding patient's hand may convey caring, but this type of nonverbal communication may be misunderstood by some patients. Some facilities, especially mental health facilities, or those caring for children, have a no touch policy. Then eye contact, which is also another type of nonverbal communication, can create a sense of confidence and credibility. That's when you talk to a person, you need to try having eye contact. Hindi yung eye contact na magbe-beautiful-eyes ka all of a sudden. Ha? You need to have an eye contact that you would look into the patient's eye and you would be confident with that. Kasi kapag ikaw hindi ka makatingin na maigi dun sa patient, it could be interpreted as a sign of dishonesty. But again, that would depend. Sa ibang bansa kasi, pag masyado mong tinitigan ng isang tao, it could be considered also a disrespect. So, you try to balance it out plus. Kasi nabawa, another story I want to share, yung nagkaroon kami dati ng patient na Muslim. Tinititigan na offend siya kasi tinititigan niya ng coworker ko. Akala nagmamatapang. So, you need to be considerate on that. Then symbols are also used to communicate in healthcare setting, which includes lines, drawings, graphic representations, and even photographs. So these are some of those symbols class. No smoking, uh, PWD, I believe, and male and female bathroom. Then less concrete communication classes are the hand signs. Hello, goodbye, please, you're welcome, yes, sorry, no, and thanks. Then active listening techniques would include using silence, accepting, restating, reflecting, focusing, explore, and seeking clarification, verbalizing, and even summarizing. Now let's go to the next lesson, the S bar communication tool. Now, the S bar communication tool class, please take note of that, is that one of the ways you could easily uh, explain something to the patient. So, the first one would be your I. Is bar talaga to klase. Introduction. So, introduction would be to identify yourself. S would stand for situation, state the patient's status. B, the background, details, or history of the patient. Assessment, what are the current conditions, recent needs, and recommendation. What do you recommend it must be? So please try to watch the video here in the module. It can provide a better understanding. But overall, class, this is how you would communicate better with patients. Try to identify yourself. What's the patient's status? Detail or history of the patient, current condition, and what can you recommend? That's your ISBOR. Okay, now let's go to the last module, your module 4 class. So this time class, this is all about the foundations of teamwork. So let me just share the PDF. All right, so the foundations of teams and teamwork class. Now, team class is defined as a group with specific tasks to accomplish of which requires the interdependent and collaborative efforts of its members. Now, the healthcare team, which is a teamwork together with shared responsibility for making decisions, planning, and delivering care. This is a sense of shared commitment and mutual accountability would also characterize them. Now, yung healthcare team nyo class would have the following characteristics. They need to have a clear, shared objective, working closely and interdependently, and meets regularly and would review its effectiveness. Then the difference, another team, yung interdisciplinary. This would involve collaboration among team members towards achieving a common goal. They would possess mutual trust and respect in which each member understands and values the contribution and perspective of other professionals. Multiple health workers from different professional backgrounds would work together with patients, families, caregivers, and community to deliver the highest quality of care which is aligned to your IPCP, Interprofessional Collaborative Practice. So this is your healthcare team and your interdisciplinary team. Now, please take note, class, that healthcare team development, all members must be engaged and committed, class, to the overall success of the team in providing optimal patient outcome. Healthcare leaders and administrators must actively cultivate as part of the organizational culture and structure. Provide the employee the needed development activities on topics such as proper communication, relationship building, conflict resolution, and interpersonal skills. Team members should meet often to discuss progress on the plan of care and implement the steps to achieve a shared goal. So these are some of the team steps. Ano ba tong team steps na to, class? This was a teamwork system developed by the Department of Defense and your ARAC sa US, Agency of Healthcare Research and Quality, to improve institutional collaborating and communication relating to patient. Now, the team's steps would include effective communication skills are vital for patient safety, enable team members to effectively relay information, the mode by which most team steps, strategies, and tools are executed. Now, healthcare team behaviors class should include they have a shared common commitment to the patient, able to self manage their specific responsibility. Most professionals continue to improve their knowledge and skills, and healthcare professionals would possess honesty and even ethical behavior. Now, the characteristics they need to be organizational, interpersonal, and team interaction. Setting goals, meeting objectives, shared problem solving, consensus building, resource management, characteristics of a dysfunctional team. So ito yung tinatawag nating class yung pyramid nila for the team effectiveness. So the highest would be inattention to result, avoidance of accountability, lack of commitment, fear of conflict, and the foundation of it all, the absence of trust. Kung wala kang tiwala, class, sa kasama mo or sa coworker mo, all of this would follow this pyramid of lack of effectivity. So when analyzing the pyramid and the five dysfunctional characteristics, let's start with number one, yung trust. This is the base of the pyramid, and it's the absence of trust. After all, a team without trust is not much of a team at all. If you do not trust the person next to you, you will never be open and honest with them, which leads to number two, your fear of conflict. Conflict class is always around, even in workplace and even in the surrounding. But not all the times ang conflict is nakakasama. Conflict can lead to debates. Some pretty amazing things can happen. Unfortunately, without trust, members of a team are afraid to be vulnerable with one another and will never be into constructive debate instead of opting for artificial harmony. Sa Pilipinas kasi, class, hindi uso sa atin yung pag-open ka, magsasabi ka na ano, alis, pag-awan naman kayo ng boss mo. Then after your fear of conflict, there would be lack of commitment. Um, Leads yung fear of uncertainty. Like, mawawalan ka ng gana magtrabaho, pag ayaw mo na sa work mo, ganun. Then avoidance of accountability class. So without commitment, there's no accountability. There's no one to confront team members and call them out for activities detrimental to the overall team. And inattention to result. This is the top of the pyramid. This is the stage where individuals would stop trying to succeed as a team. It boils down to one thing: selfishness. Team uh, Team members would rather focus on personal success than team success. As Abraham Lincoln famously said, a house divided against itself cannot stand. Once this tire is reached, a team cannot function properly without first addressing these five issues. So, model for improvement: what changes to be made? If no changes at all, you need to consider itong act, plan, study, and do class. And how team building can happen. Team building starts at the base of the pyramid and seeks to build trust among your team members. Presented in a fun and creative way, team building would challenge your group to step out of their comfort zone. And the simple exercises would help break down communication barriers and foster trust, which would later drive productivity and promote teamwork. So that's the foundations of teamwork plus. Let's go naman to the competencies of teams and teamwork. The core competency of teams and teamwork is that it's important to clearly identify class the characteristics of effective healthcare teams and strategies. To coordinate care so that gaps, redundancies, and errors are avoided. Interprofessional team-based care would require enactment of shared identity and responsibility in providing service for patients, families, and communities. Now, the subcompetencies of teams and teamwork would describe the process of team development and the roles and practice of effective teams. Develop consensus on the ethical principles to guide all aspects of teamwork. Engage health and other professionals in shared, patient centered, and population focused problem solving. Integrate the knowledge and experience of health and other professions to inform health and care decisions while respecting patient and community values and priorities and preference for care. Now, apply leadership practice that would support collaborative practice and team effectiveness. Engage self and others to constructively manage disagreements about values, roles, goals, and actions that arise among health and other professionals and with patients, families, and community members. Share accountability with other professions, patients, and communities for outcomes relevant to prevention and healthcare. Reflect on individual and team performance for individual as well as team performance improvement. Use process improvement strategies to increase the effectiveness of interprop teamwork and team-based services, programs, and policies. Use available evidence to inform effective teamwork and team-based practices. Perform effectively on teams and in different team roles in a variety of settings. So for value or ethics for interprop practice, work together with mutual respect and shared values. For the roles and responsibility, share acknowledgement of each participating team member. For interprop communication, communicate in a responsible manner that would support a team approach. For teams and teamwork, apply relationship building values and the principles of team dynamics. Na meron tayong tinatawag class na core competencies. Ano ba itong mga core competencies na to class? You're going to, one of those is values and ethics. You're going to work with individuals of other profession to maintain a climate of mutual respect and shared values. So naalala niyo yung code of ethic class. So as I enter the practice of medical technology, I shall report any violation of the above principles of the professional conduct to authorize any agency and to the ethics committee of the organization. To these principles, I hereby subscribe and pledge to conduct myself at all times in a manner befitting the dignity of my profession. And another core competency class is yung roles and responsibility. Use the knowledge of one's own role and those of other profession to appropriately assess and address the healthcare needs of patients and to promote and advance the health of populations. Then another one, yung core competency for communication. Try to communicate with patients, families, communities, and professionals in health and other fields in a responsive and responsible manner that supports a team approach to the maintenance of health and treatment of disease. So, try to attend ito in class yung mga CPD trainings na ano. If you could attend this in the future, that's one way. Then, we also have the core competency for teamwork. Apply relationship building values and the principles of team dynamics to perform effectively in different roles to plan and deliver patient population centered care that is safe, timely, efficient, effective, and equitable. So that basically ends class the